private chat? Oh yeah, that's you. Feel free to acknowledge my face. Okay.
Yeah, for like the first 5 minutes, you were just kind of staring at
I was
whatever.
actually, yeah, I was watching other people on Twitch. It's
Uh,
funny. I was kind of waiting. Yeah. All right. So we're live on YouTube now too. And I'm going to go into full screen mode. Awesome. So this is episode number 2 of just this kind of experimental thing I'm doing. The idea behind it really is just to bring people on. Just mainly, I've been looking for personal friends of mine, and just kind of bringing back dialogue. And some of the things I like to do is just talk philosophy, and I feel like that's something missing. We don't just talk about big questions anymore. We talk about a lot of other stuff, and yeah, that's kind of that's kind of the format. So this is kind of it's similar to what people would do centuries ago. They'd come together and big thinkers and philosophers and artists. They would probably have a little bit of wine or something, and then they would just go at it. They would just start pick a topic and start discussing and go back and forth and debating and dialoguing with each other. And that's kind of the spirit of what I'd like to kind of bring back today. So yeah, last time we had a guest and we kind of talked a little bit about what's real and what isn't real. There's a lot of epistemological questions and topics there. Some of that might come up today, but really, before we go on, I just want to introduce a friend of mine. His name is Eric, and I'll turn it over to you to allow you to introduce, say a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, my name's Eric. I'm a engineer technologist by day, uh, father and musician by night.
Nice.
And I've known Alok for about a quarter of a century, and
Yeah.
I am I am unprepared for tonight's discussion as I took one philosophy course and was forced to drop it shortly after shortly after handing in my first paper.
That was a rage
Uh,
quit, right?
it was a yeah, it was a rage quit, but it was going to be a quit. I had to get up before it got me, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wasn't.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I wasn't Homer, so
Right.
I was the other Homer. I was the Simpsons Homer,
Yeah, right, right,
unfortunately.
right.
Uh, but yeah, but I'm excited. I always like to chat, so I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, yeah, and just about that's no joke. So Eric, I met Eric. I remember it so. I have to like talk about it a little bit. Like the first time we were both in Comp 11 in Introduction to Computer Science, and I remember going. It was might have been like Eaton Hall or one of the halls.
Eaton,
And
yeah.
I see, because I knew we saw each other in class, and I saw you sitting in a chair, and you were just like, and I was like, oh yeah, I know that guy, and that's like the first real memory I have of you, and that was literally, I think, in like fall of 1996.
Yeah.
Literally, that's when it was. It was the very beginning.
That's right. Yeah, it'd be closer to 30 now that I think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Yeah. But seriously, like we've been, I feel like you're a incredibly dear and close friend. We've been through a lot together. And honestly, to this, no joke. I mean, this is partly why I wanted to have you on. You and I, we can pick up a phone and go for 4 hours, no problem.
Absolutely.
No
Yeah.
problem. Like, it
Yeah.
happens consistent, like, over the years, that's been just kind of the way that it's been, and we go all over the place, like, and it wouldn't we could literally talk more, but it would just be, like, and then we'd get too tired or sleepy or, like, have to eat, like, that just, like, normal life stuff, but
Yeah.
from my perspective, that's never it's only because of that, and it's not because either of us kind of don't have more. We could easily talk more. I feel that way, but I mean that's partly what I love about you and why I wanted to kind of have you on.
Same. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. feel the
Yeah.
same way.
Cool. Let's get into it. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you were one of the people who I kind of was floating this idea with, and you actually helped me do a little bit of this research. So this kind of topic, the opening, the initial thought experiment, comes from a gentleman named Plutarch, who was old time philosopher, like back in the day. He was like a follower of Plato, and he was a very influential individual. But when a lot of people refer to the paradox of Plutarch, and specifically, it's this thing called the Ship of Theseus, right? And it gets into kind of talking about the idea of identity and continuity. So the basically the premise of the Ship of Theseus goes like this, right? So Theseus from Greek mythology, um, he had a ship built to help him sail, the seas for adventure, right? At the very outset, every part of that ship was brand new and fresh. And over time, as with anything, certain parts of the ship, they fail, they break, they decay, and they need to be replaced. So over time, bit by bit, parts of the ship get replaced, and this happens, to the point where eventually, at one point in time, every single original piece of the ship has been replaced with a new part or a different part. And the question is it the same ship? Is it still the same ship? And so, yeah, that's curious to kind of hear your answer on that. And then that can go in a lot of different directions, but well,
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one. I, you know, I think the thing that's in the, I'm going to give like a non-answer answer or like a
yeah,
frustrating answer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but what's interesting is like, I think if, I think it depends on who is observing the ship.
Hmm.
So if you have memories of the ship, like if you had, if you, if your father was, brought you to the ship when you were little, or you worked on the ship,
Right.
and you came back to that ship time on time on time, I think as the pieces change, because there's memories and thoughts kind of, um, uh, because you have a connection to it,
Yeah.
it is, I would argue it is the same to that person. But I think if it was someone that knew, then if it was someone that knew encountering the ship after it had been effectively rebuilt or mostly rebuilt, because there were no memories associated with it,
Hmm.
in that instance, it might be considered new or different.
Yeah. So I think I mean, I think that is like opening up a very interesting uh, kind of perspective, right? Because literally what you're bringing in is perspective, right?
Right.
So part of what it sounds like you're saying is that the identity of the ship may be dependent on an outside observer, right? Which is
Correct.
purely subjective, right? So part of that subjectivity is what kind of like what you seem to be saying is what point in time that person has been in contact with that ship, and depending on that answer, it also can define or answer the question whether or not they perceive that ship to be the same or different from when it first started.
Yeah, and I'm cheating a little bit because I'm relating it. I'm thinking it through the lens of my children. I have two kids, and
Sure.
um, the interesting thing about having kids is that and you've met them many times before. Um, but if you were to see my daughter again, like to me, my daughter is the same.
Yeah.
She's just like if you asked me is she any different or the same, I would actually say her mannerisms and her behaviors are largely the same since she was like 4 years old, almost like 10 years. She's
Yeah.
been, but I could imagine if you were to come visit her after
Totally.
not having seen her for 6 months, 8 months, you would be like, wow, she's a completely different person.
Right.
She seems completely different than I remember her.
Yeah.
And in your case, it would be right, like because the growth, the stages of growth would be not not smooth. It would be like stepped, like it would be
Yeah.
like a whole different jump. Whereas for me, because I think because I see the evolution so slowly, it doesn't it doesn't occur to me, and I only say that because when I don't, outside of a couple of my daughter's friends, I don't like hang out at the school all that much. But so if I'm at the school every 3 or 4 months, when I see her friends that I don't see that often, I'll be like, wow, they've grown 6 inches, or they're talking in a way that is vastly different. And I always think like it's interesting that I think that they've changed, but
Yeah.
I don't think Vivian's changed. And
Right.
other people will say to me, wow, Vivian is changed, and I'll be like, what are you talking? So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. There's a yeah. I think you brought in a lot of so one of the things that I was actually gonna kind of explore, and I'm glad you did it because it's basically you introduced the idea of like your daughter who's a living person,
yeah,
right? And we were talking just now about a ship, right?
right,
But the questions of identity are still the same and continuity, right?
yeah,
Um, but they become subtler, I think, when you're talking about a person versus a human being versus an inanimate object, in terms of continuity and identity is going to be different, right? And that's my take, and I think part of it is one of the things that's kind of interesting is that like we know fundamentally like a human being, like the body fully every single cell in your body, every part of it is going to change, right? So from a purely material
Jared, turn it
perspective,
off.
you definitely are completely different right now than you were 10 years ago. 100%. There's nobody will dispute that, right?
Right,
But again, I still know you as Eric. I still call you this. You're still the same person. You're inhabiting the same body, even though it's materially different, right? So if we were to say, and that's not like I wouldn't say that has anything to do with subjectivity, and it that might be something other people would agree with as well. But why would that be different? Why would it be different between you as a human being and some other object like a ship or a book or anything else?
yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
guess
know if you have a response.
I don't know if I don't know if I have a follow on point there, but I just but I agree with you. Um,
Yeah.
just
So
on
I,
that.
I think I think what's interesting. So like with a but getting back to kind of the boat, like the ship itself. Um, you brought up the idea of somebody having. It depends on who you're asking, but do you have an answer that is purely objective? So independent of anybody's experience with the boat, if it's fundamentally changing, does anything about that change your answer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't I yeah, it's tricky. If it was gun to my head, if it was gun to my head and I had to answer, I would say that it was fundamentally different. Um,
Right.
and I think, and that's just because I think everything is different. Like, we've all worked at companies. Like when I was younger, someone told me that like companies were like humans, or companies were like human beings, and I
Yeah.
thought it was like
Because of growth, right?
I was like, that's so dumb. Like, what are you talking about? Like a
Right.
company is like a concept,
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
human is like a thing.
Right.
But in now that I'm older and have worked at more companies and larger companies, I actually understand what that means. And I think like a lot of times you'll find people who work somewhere during one period of its existence and they'll be in love with it, and then X years later, they'll hate it. They'll hate where they work, and they'll say, "Oh, it used to be so different." And it's like, well, it's still the same company. It's got the same EIN or whatever that's called, the business ID. It's still
Yeah.
headquartered in the same place. They probably still sell the same product, although somewhat enhanced. But the core of it has actually changed.
Right.
And so I think like that pattern is more same thing with like artists and music. Like
Yeah.
artists evolve. Like another big contention with being an artist versus being a consumer is interesting through the music lens because people there's a subset of people that get unhappy when artists grow because they just wish that they would do
The same.
the same thing that they love. Why did they have to change it?
Right.
Well, because they're an artist and fundamentally they need to grow.
Right.
So I think like when you look at most things, growth is inevitable and change is inevitable. And I think the idea that frankly, just because the idea that it looks the same or the idea that it smells the same or anything, that's actually an illusion. And
Hmm.
and I think there's probably some reason that we as humans need to like we need memories and we need these things. And so it's probably a trick our brain is playing on us to say like this thing. It might even be why how people can stay in love. Like you could argue like you know you could argue that our brain has to trick ourselves into like staying in love with the person that we met 20 years ago, because if we actually understood that they were fundamentally different, then maybe that bond severs, and you can't stay with someone long enough to have kids and blah 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 blah.
Do you so yeah, kind of taking that a little bit of a step further, since you brought up the idea of a company being a human, we were talking about the original question. Do you believe, and this is going to be, I'm going to use this word very specifically, because I know it can be, other words can be used, but do you believe there is such a thing as an essence, and that an essence carries forward and kind of remains, you could say, kind of like the underlying thing that preserves the identity of a thing, you know independent of any material aspect that changes beneath it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For the I'm pausing because I'm like kind of it's interesting. For the arts, yes,
Mm.
but for physical things, I don't think so.
What do you think's different?
I guess that's why yeah, that's that's
That's
exactly
what
why
you're like. Yeah, you're trying to, right,
I
right,
was
right.
kind of self-questioning myself in real time. Yeah, I think, but I also okay, it's kind of a nuanced answer. So like in lieu of humans messing it up.
Right.
Actually, I want to change my answer. I
Okay.
think like forests have an essence, I think, and areas of the country have an essence. And so I think I don't know what to call. I don't know what to call the groupings I'm making in my head. There are aspects of nature
Yeah.
that have essences,
Right.
with the caveat that humans can mess them up. But but that's what I was kind of debating. I realized like I'm faulting. I think I actually believe locations and areas have essence, but I was thinking about how humans can mess them up, and but I can't fault that. I can't fault the location for that. So I think areas and locations have essences. Like Rhode Island has an essence compared to Massachusetts, compared to New Jersey, compared to New York.
Right.
Like I would know which state I'm in if you gave me if you let me talk to 10 different people and go to like three stores.
Yeah.
I could pretty confidently tell you which. Well, I could be completely wrong, but at least I think I could tell you which of the four states I would just based on very few data points. And so that tells me there is some kind of underlying essence to an area. But then there's the asterisk, like if demographics change or we set wildfires to everything, then of course then it would the essence goes away. But I definitely believe that. Okay, it's starting to become more clear, but it's becoming more clear in my head, but I still don't have the right words for it. If
That's cool.
if the entity is pure, if the entity has pure intentions, then then it can have an essence. If the entity does not have pure intentions, then it cannot. So the distinction I'm drawing now is like I don't think a company can have an essence because because a company's goal is to maximize profit, and thus like sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, yeah, sorry. I know I don't. I'm trying to cut you off, but what I kind of was going to get at though is kind of coming back to your earlier point where you kind of introduced the idea of um, the subjective part of it, which is like, okay, a human is observing the ship, and therefore, if you asked a person, then their answer or the whether or not the ship is the same or not is dependent on their perception and their observation and experience of it.
Yeah,
Companies don't exist independent. They are formed by humans and they are disintegrated by humans, right?
yeah,
People are literally coming together for a singular goal and a vision. Usually that's to make money, but like whatever, there's all kinds of uh, other parts of it. So wouldn't you say part of what is an important aspect of essence, and we can say that there's maybe different levels of essence, but wouldn't you say that part of it is that human beings come together and then their, well, whatever it is, the way they interact with one another births an essence, right? Like
mm,
I mean, you've had your own companies yourselves and you've worked at other companies, and there's a definite difference in the way they feel,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Part of that is large, like, so for me, I was just working at a Grubhub, right? And that went through radical change. The essence of that company I know right now is pretty much gone,
yeah, right,
completely shifted, right?
totally,
But a large reason for that is has to do with how people, have fundamentally changed it, right?
yeah, correct,
So I'm curious, how a couple things. One, just curious about your response to that, and two, if part of what essence entails is that like it's from people coming together. It sounded like you have some ideas that it can come from other things too, like it's just certain places, parts of nature, they have their own essence independent of a person, right? A person comes into a particular place and you can ask multiple people, they come into a place and they say, wow, this place feels X, right? And they
yeah,
X happens to be the same thing for like like several people, whether it's scary or happy or homey or invite, all kinds of things. So does that mean there's different kinds of essences, and like how do we make sense of that?
Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, I think to your point around companies being collections of people. Again, the more I can think about this, and but I don't know why I feel this way, but I can't articulate why I feel this way. But what's interesting is, and even then it's a little shaky, but like, 'cause I don't know where to draw the bounds, but yeah, it's not going to sound right, but sing, I think singular entities can have essences, but I think aggregate entities, it is harder to have a essence with aggregate entities because, like you said, it is human dependent. It is like temporal dependent. And it's not just, it's not even, it couldn't just be the people, but it's people over time change. And as you know, back in the day, I used to be a musician. I still like music quite a bit. So I
Yeah.
think through music terms quite a bit. And the thing I was thinking about is like, take Herbie Hancock, who's like one of my favorite musicians. Herbie Hancock, the solos he was taking when he was 30 still sound like the solos he was taking when he was 80. There are things about the way he plays piano that are like, you could distill the essence of Herbie Hancock down, no problems.
Hmm.
Like when you hear Herbie, you know it's Herbie. But
Right.
the interesting thing is, Herbie has been in bands over the years that have evolved to the point where, like, the band itself, I would say, doesn't have an essence.
Right.
But the individuals in the band all have individual essences. So like Wayne Shorter always sounds like Wayne Shorter. Herbie Hancock always sounds like Herbie Hancock. Michael Brecker always sounded like Michael Brecker. He's passed away, but when you put them in a band context, they could, as a group, they could sound completely different.
Yeah. a hundred
And
percent.
and so that's interesting to me. Like, again, a location like a state has a vibe, but at like a macro scale, the state has a vibe. But if you're just get a random collection of five people within that state, I don't. That's not enough to be an essence or something. I kind of don't know how to articulate it, but it's the best I can kind of say. Um,
It's yeah. I kind of I get what you're saying. I feel like part of what that made me think of was because you were talking about individuals, right, and then an aggregate. You know, um, that made me think of there's this concept called a holon,
hmm,
which I think comes from like transpersonal psychology. There's this guy Ken Wilber who's like um, really smart dude. You know, he's kind of been the pioneer in that area. Um, but there's like this concept. A holon essentially is the idea that something is itself a part and a whole at the same time,
hmm,
right? So if you look at the band, right? So let's take the individual like this kind of hierarchy, right? So you have Herbie Hancock, who's an individual, right? And then you have all these other I don't know the names, and I
yeah,
apologize, but yeah, I
no, no
mean
worries.
all of the other band members, right? They're all individuals, right? um, but then they're parts, but then together they're also a whole,
Correct.
right? And then if you look at them as a whole, they are a part of jazz,
Right.
right? And jazz itself is a part of music, and music itself is a part of art, and art itself is a part of the human experience, etc., right? And you can take those things and you can kind of break them down, and you can kind of slide up and down, like that axis of wholes and parts. But I think what's interesting is that like the in terms of essence, you can look at essences at each and every one of those levels, right?
Yeah.
So, like an individual like Herbie Hancock, just like you said, he has his own essence, right? He's done things in music, and he's taken that to a level. I think I have a vague idea of like what he can, but he would like play multiple instruments at the same time, or like do various kinds of interesting things that's unique to him, right? So he
Yeah.
has his own people that think about jazz and they hear the name Herbie Hancock, they recognize him and they
Yeah.
know, okay, yeah, he is distinctly known. He has this. He created this persona and this essence that's unique to him. But then, he was also, I might be thinking of somebody else. But anyway, he was also in a band, and that band, the Herbie Hancock band, had its own vibe and its own
Yeah.
essence because it wasn't just him; it was various other people, who were contributing and making kind of like this new, a whole, sorry, a part joining with other parts to make a new whole creates this entirely different kind of like experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um,
But
it's
the
it.
weird th- but the
Yeah.
weird thing about it is, yeah, like the thing that, like you're saying, you scale up and down. I don't know why. I mean, I'm probably wrong, and I probably just haven't thought through it enough. But I feel it's like at certain macroscopic levels and certain microscopic levels, the idea of the essence is stronger. It's almost like the strength of the essence kind of ebbs and flows depending on where you are as you go up and down that stack. At least in
Yeah.
the art context we're talking about. So, like at the individual musician level, like even me, like I love minor 9 and minor 11 chords. I just love them. Like I could play them. If you just let me play on piano, I'll eventually start playing those. It's like I'm like tuned to that frequency.
Right.
But other people would be like, "Whoa, that's like so." Like I actually you know him, but a good friend from Tufts, and we used to go to the Boston Symphony Orchestra together, and we would buy like 3 or 4 tickets a year, and then we would go together and like get dinner, and then feel fancy and go to the symphony orchestra.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I like Tanglewood and
yeah, and I like really aggressive music like Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, like very like postmodern, like not postmodern, but kind of the post stuff, the Russian stuff, the French stuff,
Metallica.
dissonance. Yeah, this this other person like loved Vivaldi and Mozart and Beethoven,
Right.
very like calm kind of.
Right.
And so it was always tricky to like pick the concerts we'd go to because there needed to be one thing I liked and one thing he liked, and
Yeah.
he would
Yeah.
be like, "Oh," during my part, and I'd be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
during his part, and
Right.
so, but that's what's interesting. It's like, so if you asked, like at that level, if you were like, well, what does this music have the essence of? You would definitely say classical music.
Right.
Like no one would, even though it sounds as borderline as different as it could in terms of orchestration, instrumentation, sound dynamics, chords used, aggressiveness of sound. But there's an essence of classical music, and like we understand that.
Hmm.
No one would ever say, I'm listening to jazz," or like so that's really interesting. But then if you scale down enough, you can hear like when it's a janky orchestra playing versus like the New York Philharmonic or the
Yeah.
London Symphony or Boston, like it, that the, at that level the essences are completely different. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know how to exactly frame it, but um, it's just that as you go up and down, the essences feel like they either get stronger or weaker at different layers.
So okay. So that's kind of making me want to kind of delve into the subjective versus objective piece, right? Because you brought up some other things, or and that I think are interesting, which is the idea of like vibrations and frequencies and stuff, which we've talked about a bit. But I think it's easy, particularly with something like music, to kind of err on the side of subjectivity
Yeah,
and say that it's all purely um yeah, this music has this essence purely because various different a number of people, or all people, let's say, that are listening to it are saying, okay, this is harmonious, this is calming me down, or it's exciting me, right?
Yeah.
Like the differences between, like the Vivaldi versus the Stravinsky, right? Um, I think it's easy to kind of say, that is just purely subjective, right? Because the music is made by humans for humans,
Right.
right? But I think when you start looking and thinking about things at like the vibrational level, right? It seems like it actually is not so subjective. Like independent of whether or not a human being is observing or listening to these things, the fundamental nature of something like a Vivaldi, the music itself, is calming, is gentle, is like I forget the name of it, but there's like a what's there's a field of science which basically
I think it's cymatics, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Basically, like you can look at the actual form of
Yes.
a sound, right? And the form of a sound, such as the music coming from like a Vivaldi, has this kind of very structured, symmetric shape.
Correct.
And then something that is cacophonous, my favorite word. Um, like you take a fork and you like the canonical, you run it down a blackboard, right, and you record that,
Yeah.
and then you do the kymatics or the cymatics on that. It looks jagged and asymmetric, and it doesn't look very harmonious, right? That's not. I don't believe that's. I mean, if that's how if that's like like a shape, I mean, I get it. Like it's still being observed and looked at by a human, but I still feel like that's objective. That's not, you know. So then that gets me thinking about, okay, well, how does or doesn't that impact the way we're thinking about essences? Are essences objective, subjective, a little of both? How do you I'm just curious, like, if you have any response of thoughts to that, given like, your musical background.
Yeah, it's a super good question. And I was actually kind of even exploring that, thinking about that a little bit while you were explaining. Because just to build on your idea though of it being objective, what's interesting is that um, lullabies are like widely considered lullabies across all cultures.
Yeah.
Like that kind of sound is generally considered calming.
Right.
And like what we would call a tritone in Western theory, or like even just take any horror music, like from a Halloween or whatever. Like most cultures understand that that is a scary sound,
Yeah.
and so like
And
it's
animals too.
yeah, right, really good point. Um, and so like that's why it's creepy for us when like sometimes you see the horror trailers and it's like they're playing like a childhood kind of melody,
Yeah.
but it sounds all weird and creepy, and that's why it's so disturbing to us because
Mhm.
like it is this fundamentally
There's an
calming
awfulness to it.
thing that
Right.
is being it's subverting what we expect. Like you don't expect the guy to come through the um thing to kill you to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or like
Right.
Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like you expect it to be some crazy sound. So I mean that's just kind of building on what you're saying. But what's interesting is what's interesting though is like to your question is I think well this is my guess. I don't know because I'm only me,
Yeah.
but I think there's two components to it. It is I think it's I think a lot of things are objectively something, but I think the variable, the wild card is how humans choose to like how humans choose to like receive that objectivity. How the thing we can't control is how humans. What is someone's relationship to that objective thing is the kind of the wild card of the equation, meaning like, um, the, think of like my brother-in-law is like a big metalhead. Like he likes like very aggressive sounding Norwegian Scandinavian metal music.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't like kind of calm music. He likes very aggressive things. But I think deep down but I think he would admit that the calming music is calming, but he would just argue but it doesn't, but it doesn't activate him in that way.
Yeah. So
If that
that,
makes sense. I know
yeah,
it's a
no,
little,
totally. I think that that's bringing in a little bit of a new element, which is the interpretation.
interpretation. Yeah, great word.
So if yeah, so he may agree that like a lullaby is very nice and calming, but like he may that's not music that he wants to regularly listen to, like
Yeah,
and it's because his personal preference, what he enjoys, what he gets satisfaction or derives pleasure from, is listening to something that um hits a point of excitement in him,
yeah.
right? That he's not looking to be calm, right?
Right. And because he doesn't find the calming thing calming, in fact, he might find it irritable. I think what's
Yeah,
interesting is it may not calm him down. Because like his reaction to the calming music might be like, wow, I really hate this music. Like this is really frustrating to me. Why? And then like you don't actually get the calming effect that
yeah,
one would expect because like this person is overriding the what they're overriding what the thing is trying to do to you. It's very similar to kids that are teenagers, and you bring them to like a tranquil lake with like a beautiful sky and beautiful trees and like a tranquil lake, and they're just like, I want to play Nintendo Switch,
yeah,
and like they can't accept the beauty
right.
because it's like it's grating to them, and now like they're in this beautiful place, but it's actually like a frustrating experience for them because they're not actually like accepting what the essence is trying to give them. They're rejecting it.
I think I personally believe eventually it
Yes.
will, you know. Um, I think I think what is fascinating is there's a layer that gets created, kind of just from our own experiences and of living and growing up, that can become kind of like a defense, or like kind of a block, for
Yeah.
something like that to kind of get through. But I think if they were willing to let it go. So for example, if we took your brother-in-law, right, he might love metal, right, he might be in the mood for metal, but if we stuck him in like gamelan, right, and such that it kind of like, and he was there for a reasonable amount of time, I would venture to guess that eventually some of that resonance would, and
Penetrate.
that essence would start resonating within him, right?
Yeah.
And I'm making, so like part of what's a little bit weird about that is I'm making like kind of a big leap in that, or assumption rather, in the sense that there's something inherent within us
Yeah.
that will kind of reverberate with something that has a certain essence, and
Yeah.
that essences, because from from when we've talked about it, it comes down to a vibration, right?
Yeah.
Everything is a vibration, is a frequency, right? So like when you're talking about let's hypothetically say, okay, we're talking about a haunted house versus Yellowstone Park, right?
Right.
Very different essences, like the
Right.
Amityville Horror House. um, you go in there and like, what do people say? They say like, oh my, like I could feel the little hairs on the back of my neck stand up, right?
Yeah.
Or they go into Yellowstone and they're like, I immediately just like let out a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Just felt completely at home and relaxed there, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of getting back to another thing, because I did want to come back to identity as it applies to human beings and essences, but let me pause there because I want to give you a chance to respond or to debate or counter anything I said.
No, what's interesting is where you went with your music example. I thought you were going to go in the other direction because I actually agree with you. I think if you because I played gamelan for a while and it sounded like alien music to me for a long time, and then at some point it switched and I understood it, and then it became like the most calming music to me. I mean, it actually depends on what the composer is trying to do. But if
Yeah,
the composer is writing a calming song, it can be the most calming music that I've probably ever heard. If that's what again, if that's what they're trying to do. But the example I was thinking of to our point of like to your kind of point of like mental blocks and how humans get in the way. I was gonna relate it to like when I was in high school, Nirvana was like, or maybe even middle school, but there was a time period where Nirvana was like, it was literally the only thing that one could listen to where I was growing up, and for it to be acceptable. Anything that was not Nirvana was just what are you doing? And I hated Nirvana that entire time. I hated it.
yeah,
And but then years later, I got into this band and we started playing Nirvana songs and like they were geniuses. Like now that I'm playing the music, now that I'm playing it devoid of all this other stuff,
right, right,
right? Like all of the annoying kids and all of the people pretending like they're broke when their parents have three houses and they have a house on the Cape, and oh, I'm listening to all these sad lyrics about my horrible life. That what I didn't like about Nirvana is everyone. It felt like the majority of people who like Nirvana had no reason to like Nirvana.
mm,
It's like, yeah, I know where you live. I've been to your house. I see the cars you have. I know that you go on vacations. Like Kurt Cobain is not doing any of those things. Like
yeah. You felt like there was like a inauthenticity into how people
yeah,
were
it's
relating
oh,
to.
I wanna play the part, and it's like, well, you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that part. So
yeah,
I had this block, but when I just listened, when I had to play the music and get inside of it and understand like the soul of it, with none of the peanut gallery, kind of, like actioning around me,
right,
I was
right.
like, oh, this is really like you know, uh, Kurt Cobain was a poet, and this band is
Yeah,
was actually something really special. And
yeah,
now I get why so many people, because
yeah,
our band list is like 80 songs. Like, there's only out of the 80 songs we play, there's probably like 25, 30 bands across those 80 songs. There's like five bands that are different, and when you
yeah.
play their music, it's like, oh, this, like Weezer, for example, is not. Weezer is the most boring. They write great pop music, but it's like
Very,
there's no there. But
yeah,
like Stone Temple Pilots, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, uh, 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 um, uh, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Green Day. Now, notice I'm naming all the biggest bands in the world. Like
in that genre at that time.
they
So
all have something special. Like when you
yeah,
play their songs, it is different. And
yeah.
I've only gotten to appreciate. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking us into a weird area. I'll wrap it
No,
up in a second. But it's like that's something that's been inherently fascinating to me because again, to the earlier point, I am now just engage. I am only engaging with this music that I'm playing on a sonic level
yeah,
within my band's context,
right,
and I'm a being it with all these other bands, and
right.
there's all these other bands, Sublime, and like I said, Weezer, and these just they're not nothing bands, but it's like the Chumbawamba guys, like who cares? Like it's just kind of like who cares music.
Yeah,
I don't feel anything even when I play it.
yeah,
But those other bands I was telling you about, like I
yeah,
get excited to play their music,
Yeah.
and there's like an energy in it. And I and a lot of those bands, I love Stone Temple Pilots, but outside of that, those other bands I didn't like when
Right.
I was in high school
Yeah.
because everyone else liked them. So I reflect on that, and I don't understand why that is, but I find it like fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. I mean, not to kind of go too, but I mean, I did. I've always been a fan of like Nirvana and grunge and all of those bands. I
As you
loved.
should have been. Yeah, they're incredible.
Yeah,
Like,
and I so distinctly remember like hearing about Nirvana, and then I saw them for the like I think I saw them play like for the first time on Saturday Night Live, and I was like, I think they played "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and I was like, yeah, these guys are good. Like it's good music. And then I started hearing all these other songs, and then yeah, like some of the songs off of like Bleach, their earlier albums, because like Nevermind was huge.
yeah.
Like it just kind of overshadowed all the other songs that they did. But then you listen to some of these other songs, and it's like wow. And then they did the unplugged, and the unplugged is like so good, man. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like some of like I mean, they were playing songs like from David Bowie, from Lead Belly, and you're like you're kind of getting introduced, and they're giving it their own flair. But he's like they're kind of going through all of the Meat Puppets. Like I never heard of the Meat Puppets before Nirvana, but like they were like a huge influence on them. So um, yeah, no, I just remember like feeling like, oh yeah, these guys they're different. They're um, I say same thing with like Nine Inch Nails. Like I remember
I love those.
somebody,
Yeah.
dude. I remember hearing "Wish" for this first time. I was like at a track meet, and somebody on the track team. This is when we had cassettes, and he had his Walkman with him, and he was like, "Yeah, here, listen to this song. It's called Wish." And I heard it. I was like, "I've never heard anything like this before." I was just like, yeah. So
But yeah, dude, he to your point, when yeah, a closer man, I just
yeah,
that melody in closer, I mean, that like lives in my head rent free. And yeah, that's another great example. There were so many bands. That was a
yeah,
genre me and my friend Ryan, we listened to it was really Ryan was like obsessed with it, but I listened to a lot of it as part of it. And yeah, there was something about Trent. Like it is not surprising to me he's an award-winning
yeah. Like he was
Oscar-winning music film
successful in
composer
100%.
because
Yeah,
when you watch his videos, which were traumatizing, kind of
yeah.
back
Right.
then, but like you could see, like it wasn't. Aphex Twin is another. Yeah, Aphex Twin is another one where
Yeah,
always the music was telling a visual story. Square
story.
Pusher in the same boat, and then
Yeah,
when you watch their videos back when MTV was a thing,
yeah,
their videos were just different, and you could tell
yeah,
it was like it was a sonic world that they created,
yeah,
and it wasn't just again like these other bands, the Weezer, Buddy Holly. It's like
yeah.
they're just on stage, like pretending to be Happy Days. There's nothing wrong with it; it's perfectly fine.
Right.
But like the creative gap in what these different bands are trying to do, it's like there's it like it. I know I'm taking this way off track, but it's like I always tell people it's hard to even we don't have enough words to describe like artist versus musician versus whatever. Because I
Mhm.
would argue Weezer and Nirvana are not the same thing.
Right.
We would call them bands, but they're not. We're not being
They're,
nuanced enough about what they actually were,
right.
and that's not a knock on either because they both filled they both did a thing that they needed to
The
do.
crazy, the crazy thing is, you'll see random Gen Zers wearing a Nirvana shirt. I'm like, dude, do you even know? Like, have you ever heard a Nirvana song? I mean, but that, like, to your point, that just tells you like how powerful and of an impact that band had.
Yeah,
Yeah, and getting kind of like to essences. I feel like I don't know if you probably haven't, but there's this movie called The Crow way back when. It was like it had Bruce Lee's son Brandon
yeah,
Lee. It was like
Brandon. Yeah,
but like dude, that had a dude, the soundtrack to The Crow probably is one of the things that best encapsulates the genre and the time. It's just a magnificent soundtrack. There's a there's a track from Nine Inch Nails on it called "Dead Souls."
Mm.
Fantastic! It's just like such a good song.
Yeah.
And like all of the tracks on it are just fucking incredible. I mean, there's such and it like the movie itself is incredible too. It's like a pretty it's a bleak it's a revenge movie, but I mean it kind of like it captured like the 90s really well, like just perfectly. But yeah, let's getting back because I mean we're getting I mean I want to be respectful of your time. I generally give like an hour for these, but I mean if you got to drop because I know it's getting late.
I probably
Um,
have another 15 minutes. I can probably go
yeah.
to 10:15.
Okay. Cool. So let's okay because I want to get back to this. This is a pretty important. This is an interesting one, right? Okay. So coming back to identity and continuity. Um, Here's something that I think is super interesting, right? So, practically speaking, with human beings, there's an identity we all know and recognize that has a continuity across time, right? Like, practically speaking, I still know you as Eric. You're the same Eric I knew 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, 30 years ago, from the first day that I met you, right?
Right.
You're the same person that's continued. Your body has changed, all kinds of stuff has changed, but you're still you, right? um why why is that? What is when I if you if I were to ask you, I still recognize you as you, what would you say I'm actually talking about? I mean, is it a memory, is it a personality, a spirit, a soul, a vibration, something else? Like what what do you think we're really like talking about?
I think it goes back to what you were. I think it's the idea of the essence. I'm guessing it's my essence is similar, where essence is like a series of like a series of unsaid principles about how I view and behave in the world. It would be my best guess. Because I would say the same thing to you, same thing about you, which is like you're very similar. Like you've evolved. What's kind of interesting is you've evolved. Like if I think about that question about you, it's like you've evolved in some very significant ways in terms of growth and kind of becoming a better, more well-rounded person. But like but I would argue your essence is the same. There's core concepts about you that haven't changed. Um, so yeah, so that's what I would say. It's like your essence or my essence. You're probably keying into my essence, just like I'm keying into yours,
Right.
and that's like a
So okay, like we're using the term essence, but would like for you, I mean it's kind of getting a little bit into kind of religious and spiritual beliefs, but like would you call that a spirit, a soul, something independent? How would you practically kind of think about it?
yeah. It's a good question. I don't know if any of those terms are to me those terms seem somewhat interchangeable depending on like to your
Yeah.
point like if you're a Catholic or if you're a Christian maybe you would say it's a soul. If
Yeah.
you there may be another religion that would call it an essence, but I think those are fundamentally the same. To me, those are fundamentally the same things.
Right.
Um, the vibration, the idea of it being a vibration is interesting, specifically because like if it were a vibration, one might think that you might need to be near somebody in order to perceive it. But what's interesting is like you still seem like you even when we're talking on the phone when I can't even like see you. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. The next place is kind of connected, and obviously it's like you might you might you might predict kind of where I'm going, but um, fundamentally, like if we're talking about essences, right? When a person dies, when we talk about identity, that completely vanishes,
Right.
right? So you're alive right now. I still hold to the idea of you having a continuity all through this time, right? Because I can see that, like you're still you. You're still, like your body is kind of still holding a certain form and a shape. Um, but we don't hold that same idea of continuity post death because it no longer applies, right? So
Right.
why is that? So if there is an essence or a change in state, like what actually happened?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this gets back to one of the things we talked about in the very beginning of the discussion, that we're this gets to the question of, like, did you have a relationship with that person? Did you have, like, the things that we tend to hold on? So, for example, if um, we both had parents pass away. It's like
Yeah,
each person that knew our fathers, let's say, have a particular memory of who that person was
right.
that they hold on to, that is probably singular to themselves. So,
Hmm.
like, let's just use my father. Like, I think of my father a certain way. My sister thinks of my father in a different way.
Hmm.
And his eldest living brother, probably thinks of him in a very different way. And so, what's kind of interesting is, like, when someone's alive, they can emit, you, like, you can try and emit who you are, or you can try and emit who you are and what you believe, but when you're gone, to your point, and you can't emit that anymore, you're like, now that the people that interact with you can hold on to, like, they can form their own memory of you, or their own.
Independent of you or
Yeah, and
who
it's
you.
different, and that's what's fascinating. Like,
Yeah,
like, you learn that your father was a different person to all
right,
these different people, and you're like,
right.
oh, I didn't know him.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy, I don't that guy you're talking about, I don't know that guy.
Right, 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 right.
I knew this guy. Wait, who's that guy?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, like, it was all the if that person could come back, it would that entity is that person to all those people. So
Yes.
that's what's a little bit interesting about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of getting back to the subjectivity angle, right? So, like, like, yeah, it's just to your point. Yeah, you're like you will fundamentally, because people are different people, they're going to experience you in their own way, right? And they're going to form an idea of you um, that is unique to them, right? And like when those people talk to each other about you,
yeah,
they're talking about them purely from that perspective, right? From how they interpreted and understood you as a person. And those can be radically different, even though it's all kind of leading back to the same person.
yeah, yeah. I'm laughing because it's like there's definitely people I know who I'm probably their cool black friend, but,
Right.
like, to my black family, they'd be like, "What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
he,
yeah.
he he's just a guy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or, like,
Right.
like, So, that's what was funny to me. It's like these things that we, like, yeah, to my white friend, that might be their one cool black friend,
Yeah.
but to a bunch of other people, like, I'm just a friend, you
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Right, right, right. It just, yeah, the nuances change.
Yeah.
Here's one thing I'm really curious because I was thinking about this, and I'm really so curious to get your take. In talking about, like, we see, like this state transition from living to non-living. That's a special event, right?
Yeah.
Um, and in a strange way, like nobody knows, right? Nobody knows like what happens, like what's the difference, like just before and just after
Yeah.
that change in state, right? Something clearly, something significant is happening, right?
Yes.
We have no idea what it is, or we
Right.
like a lot of people like to pretend they do, but we don't, right?
Yeah.
So as far as continuity is concerned, obviously that's a big thing, right? Like I will no longer like if I had a plant, right, and that plant dies, you know, like the relationship that I had with it completely changed. There's an ending point there, right?
Yeah.
At least in terms of experiences that I can have with it, and you know, like you said, we're just going to rely from now on memory alone. But what I find interesting is that you see transitions from living to non-living all the time. Right?
Yeah.
That happens constantly, right? You don't see the opposite. You don't
That's
see non-living
interesting.
going to living, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And like, do you think that will ever be possible? And if so, does that change anything about identity and continuity based on what we've been discussing?
Wow. I can't believe I've never thought about that before. That's actually mind blowing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I've never considered that. I don't think. Oh man, we're gonna run out of time. I don't think.
It's a
Yeah,
good
this is a.
cliffhanger.
Yeah, this is a super. Yeah, this. But I don't think that would and or should ever happen naturally because I think it violates. I think that idea violates an underlying principle of like our universe or uh you know I think that's a violation. I think we can do it.
I got you now. I got you
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
So then, if what you're saying is true, then it must mean there have always been living beings,
Yeah.
and that separation between living and non-living has always existed.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Hmm. So going back eons and eons and eons, there was always so if what you're saying, if we are to kind of let's hypothetically accept that as true, right? Then living beings always have existed and always will exist, and the transition from living to non-living um, will always be possible, but the reverse cannot be possible.
I think we can make it possible, but I think there'll be some. I think humans will find a way to make non-living dead things alive again. But I think that is. But I think this gets back to the ship thing, which is like,
Mhm.
is that still? Yeah, you like reincarnated Grammy, but is that
Is that
is that
still your grandmother? Yeah,
is that really Grammy?
yeah. Like,
Um,
where did they get the essence from? And like, is if there was a fundamental essence that kept us, that kept me knowing you as you,
yeah,
and then that essence leaves, how how would I ever get it back? Like that means that there's something about the essence itself that's material.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's super. Yeah, that is interesting. Like I said, I think. Yeah, I think reanimating something is like a divide by zero error, or like a seg fault, and I think we'll do it much like computers do seg fault, and you can divide by zero.
Why? I need. Why do you think? I'm just curious. Why do you think we'll be able to do it?
because I think that's something humans are going to want to do.
You believe they're capable of it?
I think we will figure out with the aid of AI, we will figure out how to do it, and then someone will do it. Much to the, I think, much to the plight. I think this is a wholly negative thing. And to be clear, I don't. When I say reanimate, I'm just saying like they will try and reanimate. I don't know what will happen when they do it, but I don't think it will be what they expect. I think they're expecting that you're just going to get Grammy back, and it's going to be like, hey, it's Grammy, and we can go to the lake one last time and fish, or like we used to do. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be something. It's something we shouldn't do, um, and I think there will be unintended side effects that we don't understand. Because I think to your back to the earlier point, I just think it's not something that is meant to your. What's interesting is most things exist in nature. And like you said, this is something that does not really exist in nature. Even like tardigrades, those little things, like they don't die. They
Yeah.
just can
They
like put
just go in like
suspended
hibernation.
animation. Yeah,
Right.
they can just kind of like do this crazy thing where like their molecules are like barely moving, so they
Yeah.
effectively take up they have no energy uses, but they're not
Right.
dead. And actually, one thing that's interesting is they say that anesthesia, the reason that they say anesthesia is actually quite dangerous because they said that when you have anesthesia, you're actually replicating death. And they said that there's a subset of people for whom like they have like almost like anesthesia reintegration sickness. And like when they come out of anesthesia, they will like exhibit the same effects or trauma effects as people who've like technically died on like an operating table or something.
Right. Right.
So that tells me like, hey, that isn't natural.
Right.
Putting someone into an anesthetic state is not natural. Simulating death is not natural. And we don't have examples in nature of like things reanimating from the dead as far as I know. And since
Yeah.
that isn't
No either.
and since that doesn't exist in nature, that means we probably shouldn't do it. Because nature has everything else in it.
I mean, to your point, I think what is interesting about and like it's debatable because I mean humans are within nature, therefore anything a human does is natural.
Right.
Um, but yeah, we don't see nuclear fission happening in nature, right? I mean that's
Right.
purely a human and like figuring out and dropping an atomic bomb and harnessing atomic energy is something that like is very unique to us as far as I know. I don't I mean, I haven't heard of any dolphins in the Marianas Trench uh you know
Enough nukes.
gathering up plutonium and
Yeah.
for whatever. But yeah, I think that humans are unique in that they have the capabilities of doing things that are very unique and unseen anywhere else in nature. But
Yeah.
I disagree. I don't believe, and I mean it's debate. I mean, like we can probably get into a discussion around what do we mean by reanimation or
Mm.
like bringing something back from the dead. But I don't fundamentally believe you could take a human will be able to take something non-living and be able to somehow create something living. But what's fascinating is at a material level, all the components are there. Like if you take a human being that's alive and you can break it down into all of the fundamental elements and you can take all of those elements like from somewhere and like you can put them in a pile
Right.
One is living, the other is non-living, but fundamentally, from a purely material perspective, they could be identical.
Yeah.
Put so like what that's what I find fascinating is that there's from a purely material perspective, two things could be exactly the same, but they're very clearly different.
Yeah.
How is it like what is that to me? Like again, I mean that's not something we're going to be able to answer here, but I just think that's super interesting. And I think what's crazy though is that the prevailing evolutionary theories basically say that.
Yeah.
All evolutionary theory says is that there was a primordial soup, like all of the literally what I just said, all of the elements, the fundamental building blocks were just like swimming around in like an aqueous solution. And then out of all of that, you got these like super simple amoeba one-celled animals, right? And then from there everything else evolved,
Yeah.
right? That's what science literally says. But I mean it's not answering this fundamental question of like how in the fuck did that happen?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like okay, with like lightning, and then like okay, these things kind of, and then like like couple elements started forming together, and then they like separated, started cell dividing, and I don't buy it. Like I
I
don't I
agree.
don't
Yeah. It's
I don't
yeah.
get it. Like it
I
doesn't
I
make
to-
sense.
I hard agree. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. It doesn't. I agree with you. It doesn't. I don't buy it either. I don't think we. It's like you said about what happens after death. We just don't know what happened,
Yeah,
and no matter what we think we know, I don't know if it's ever knowable. But yeah, like the prevailing theories don't make a lot of sense to me.
yeah. I mean, the
Um,
other the other interesting thing is like we don't know what happens before life either.
right.
Like if an essence kind of comes in, like okay, we know that there's a sperm and an egg, and then they join, and then they start cell dividing. I mean, this is like kind of like this can go a very political direction, and I don't want it to, but fundamentally, okay, at one point we say this thing starts getting a heartbeat, and it starts becoming and resembling a living thing, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. We don't know. Like we don't have clear understandings. Okay, like if this thing is like, does the essence come in at the moment these two things join, and then like this special thing happens? Like what? Or it happens later on. Okay, it has to self divide to a certain level, and I don't know. I mean, like it's just weird because there's a very specific material aspect that's part of it.
Yeah.
There has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like as humans, like I could see them trying to do an experiment where if you had a identical sperm and an identical egg, and you fertilize them in two different women with like and you raised one kid in Scandinavia and you raised the other kid in Australia,
Yeah.
like are do they lead different lives? Do they have different
Yeah.
essences? Well, they were
Right.
the same egg and the same sperm, so like
Right.
how is that possible? Nature versus nurture, and like yeah, it's really interesting, like these kinds of things, and like to the early discussion of the kids, like I never got it until I had kids, but like your parents know you.
Yeah.
Like your parents actually kind of understand your essence better than you could ever.
Right.
When you're young, you don't want to believe it, but then I
I think,
like I
and the reverse is true too. I would say,
yeah,
like
yeah,
your kids know you in a way that nobody else does.
absolutely, absolutely. But I think like for the kids, they don't you don't want to you don't want to you like you don't want to believe that your parents you because you kind of rebel. But now that I
Yeah,
had kids, I'm like, no, the way my daughter was at 4 is the exact same how she is. Some things have changed,
right,
but
right.
the majority of her being
Her
from 4 to
essence
11 is the
has stayed
exact
the
same.
same. Yeah, yeah,
Like to the point where I would know if there was something wrong with her, or
right,
like I can tell when she's out of sorts, or if something went wrong at school. I know immediately because her essence is like her vibe is off.
right. The
You call
aura.
it vibe, essence, whatever, but I can just sense it.
Oh, dude, we didn't get. We got. We're going into an area I love talking. We didn't get a chance. I mean, I know we're kind of like already over time, but you brought up some super interesting. So I like that the embryo, the separate, identical, but in two different mothers thing. Like I am obsessed with twins. I have this friend, and she might watch this, but like, she's a twin. She has a twin, and lives in Washington, like in like Maryland or something. And I always bug her about these like, questions about twin telepathy and like, do you feel like do you if she gets hurt, do you ever feel, like I'm always fascinated by that. Um, and then yeah, I mean there's also kind of the telepathy thing. We didn't get into that, but I definitely feel like I completely agree with you. Like if you can feel, if you're really close to somebody, you
Yeah,
know there's certain things you can just feel about them without them having to tell you. And like
yeah,
I've this has happened. It's like, okay, yeah, there's no way this is not real, right? Like I've had so many instances, countless, where I thought about somebody. Like I thought
yeah,
about them, like I haven't seen them in months, maybe even years. And I just think about them, and then I see them, or they call me, or they text me, or
yeah.
something. It's like, that's not I mean, okay, it happens at least like twice a month. It's like, okay, like, like 24 times a year. Like
Yeah,
that's a cool, like, okay, we're gonna just chalk that up to chance. That's Come on,
yeah.
that's not true. I don't know. I mean, but
I agree for what it's worth. Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah,
I don't even think I'm not even convinced deja vu is what they say. Like your brain, like there's something.
right.
Yeah, again, we're kind of at, but like another example of this though is like, well, anyway, I'll save it for another time. I was
Yeah.
gonna say like, like this, but I've been having a lot more lucid dreams recently,
Right.
and even like these things I'm doing at night, like there is something deeper than like there's just particularly because there's two or three places I go to routinely now,
Yeah.
and I have like a different life in this other place, and like I kind of know when I'm in there, and it's like this is something different but it's just to your point of like I don't even know why I'm. I guess it's hard to even say why I'm relating them, but it is relating to what you're saying about like this intuition or this.
Right. Some other extra
Yeah,
sensory perception, or some kind of frequency radio, like thoughts being a receiver or a transceiver or a projector, and that, yeah, synchronizing an energy and a frequency, and just feeling, intuiting
yeah,
something, because it's like in the ether.
yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll call it there. We'll definitely. I have so many other. Yeah, I mean, there's so many other things that I'd love to talk about, but
Yeah, I'll stay on task next time. I take away for me is
no,
to
no, no, no. The whole point. No,
stay on
that's
the path.
no, 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 no. Go wherever your mind goes. Like that's part of it. I think I want I want this to just be like a very a very free exploration. I mean, I like, I've things that I'll come with, because I'm just curious. But and where it goes. That's fine. Like yeah, I appreciated, and I joined in on like the some of the the side roads. Those are fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't feel like that. Um, but yeah, thanks for coming on. I know.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's always fun. Even after 20 something years, man, it's still always fun. So that's
Yeah,
great.
good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Hope you have bandwidth to do it again in the future. I know I would love to do this again. So
Yeah, we definitely will. This has been great. All right.
okay.
Have a great night.
All right. Cool, man.
Take care.
Take care. See ya.